Welcome to my series of Healthcare Seeing Google Plus Hangouts, where we sit down with top leaders in healthcare IT. Today, we're excited to have Jason Mendenhall, Executive Vice President of Cloud at Switch. Jason Mendenhall is the master of all things cloud and big data technologies in his role as Executive Vice President of Cloud. He oversees Switch Cube, which is the cloud ubiquitous business exchange, which delivers the most comprehensive technology and cloud ecosystem in the market to Switch clients and partners. In his role, he also acts as the creator and chief evangelist of new products and services into the Switch ecosystem. And on a bit of a personal note, the Switch SuperNap is also the venue sponsor for my upcoming Health IT Marketing and PR conference in their beautiful venue, the Innovation Center. So many of you will get to see the technology we talk about firsthand. You can find more details for that event at healthitmarketingconference.com. I'm pleased to have Jason here with me today.
Thanks for having me, John.
Great. So tell us a little bit about the Switch SuperNap and your role in the organization and what you guys are trying to accomplish.
So one of the interesting things about Switch and what we've done here in Las Vegas is we've built one of the world's most powerful technology solutions ecosystem, and it starts with a world-class data center design, kind of unparalleled connectivity, and then over 50 different cloud providers that we've brought into one technology solutions ecosystem. So when you're any organization, whether it's healthcare, financial services, or gaming, any industry, the e-commerce, you name it, there's this whole suite of solutions that you need in order to deliver your applications out to your constituency. And at the end of the day, you see that applications, they run on operating systems, they travel over networks, they land on servers and storage that sit somewhere. And we create that whole ecosystem, from cloud computing to world-class connectivity to the world's best designed data centers.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, and I think most of my listeners know I come from Vegas, so I imagine many of them are saying, well, why did you choose Las Vegas for doing this type of a company?
Yeah, so the couple of things that are very interesting, right? And there's a lot of reasons why Las Vegas is great. I'm a native from Las Vegas, so that's one reason, because since I'm from here, it's obviously clearly great. But, when you think about the fact that we're housing the infrastructure for these companies, so think about that for a minute. Companies are spending millions, tens, or even hundreds of millions of dollars on infrastructure. So one of the first things you have to do is you want to choose somewhere safe, right? No one wants to show up and find out that Hurricane Guelda has scattered your infrastructure from Alabama to Missouri, right? That's a bad day. So Las Vegas is uniquely positioned as one of the only metropolitan markets in all of North America that has a 0 rating for natural disasters. So we don't have earthquakes, floods, tornadoes, tsunamis, wildfires, any of those things. They don't happen in Las Vegas. So it's a safe place. It's number one. The other thing is, a lot of people say, well, you've got all this infrastructure and all these servers and storage, and they generate heat. Why would you try to cool that in the desert? Well, that's actually one of our strengths. The climate here is very beneficial for what we do. Our CEO and founder, Rob Roy, as he's designed the data center, one of the things he's patented and created is a very innovative way for cooling and managing that data center infrastructure. He has over 218 patents on the designs of the data center. And one of the things we're able to do is take advantage of the fact that 70% of the year, here in Las Vegas, it's 72 degrees or cooler. Now, a lot of people, when they hear that, they go, oh, there's no way. I've been to Vegas in the summer. It's never 72 degrees or cooler. But when you look at a 365-day year, and you look at 24 hours a day, 70% of those hours on any given year, we're 72 degrees or cooler. And so when those conditions are met, one of the things we're able to do is basically use outside air to cool the data center for free. And it makes an extremely efficient environment. So you got the safety, you got the climate, that's a key thing, and then the other thing that's important to Las Vegas is the connectivity. In the late 90s, early 2000s, Enron built a very unique building here in Las Vegas. They called it the Broadband Peering Arbitrage Data Center. And their goal was to trade bandwidth between the carriers using the same algorithms they were using to trade power. And so they got all these carriers to come into this one building. This was built a long time ago. And, I guess 10 years is a long time now. It used to be like 40 years is a long time ago. Now 10 years is a long time. So it's about 10 years ago, right? And we know what happened to Enron. They declared bankruptcy. And then Rob Roy, our CEO and founder, was across the street. He saw this happen. and he spent the next 9 months pulling that facility out of Enron's bankruptcy. So all that connectivity with all those carrier assets became an asset of Switch, and it makes Las Vegas one of the most internationally and nationally connected cities in all of North America, and our customers are able to take advantage of that. The other reason why Vegas is great is when you think about it, there's 45 million people that come through here a year, and it's very easy for businesses to get in and out of this environment, and most importantly, for businesses to do business with one another here, because everybody comes through. You know, you can't name an industry that doesn't have a conference in Las Vegas, except for maybe the Chick-fil-A conference, right? That does not have a conference in Las Vegas at any time. And so with all those people coming through, it becomes a great place to do business and interact with your customers. And so it's been a very meaningful place for us. And for any customer, anyone in the healthcare industry that's looking at where their infrastructure should be, they do need to get it out of their building. It's too complicated. It's getting too complicated today, and they needed to get in these highly resilient environments like Switch builds. And we guarantee 100% uptime on power and cooling with our customers, and we've taken care of the likes of, of eBay and News Corp and Dignity Health and Morgan Stanley and St. Joseph's Health Systems and Amgen and pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, medical companies. We've built the environment that can actually house that in the best way possible, and so we're uniquely positioned to deliver those services to customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because in healthcare, at all these health IT conferences, we often get the experience where someone's talking about what happened after Katrina, right? What happened after Sandy, and what happened with their data centers and everything. And so I think that's interesting from a natural disaster standpoint. But I mean, tell me a little bit. I mean, you listed some of the organizations there. I mean, can you work with big organizations, small organizations? Do you have a sweet spot? And are they mostly from Las Vegas? I mean, a lot of times people say, well, data centers got to be close. What's your thoughts on that?
No, we have over 1,000 customers in our environment. This is a very big environment. We're going to build to 2.2 million square feet of data center space. We have 500 megawatts of power committed to the environment to make sure it's all there, and all the patents and innovations to make this the place to be. So although, some of the big names that I just mentioned, those are big brand names, and those are names that we know, we refer to those so that people go, oh, I get it if they're doing it. But for the fact of the matter is, we take care of many small to medium-sized businesses as well. Our smallest unit, the people say, what's the smallest thing you'll sell? It's like, well, an instance on a cloud. That's the smallest thing today, So it's customers of any size, and I think that's the benefit. And really, this environment, what we've built here at Switch, is so meaningful for the large companies as well as the small companies. Because imagine you're some new service provider in the healthcare industry, and maybe you've built a messaging application that allows doctors to communicate with one another. Like there's a local company called was it DocBeat?
Yep.
Yep, DocBeat's a local company that's done that. So here's a small company that's going. They get to put themselves in this environment, and then they get to take advantage of the buying power of all of these big companies. So they get lowered costs for connectivity, lowered costs in the data center, better access to additional resources for them. And it allows them to be able to go out and take care of many customers throughout their ecosystem, because they got all these tools available to them right here in this environment. If you're a small business, if you're a small business and you're in the hardware space, where do you want to go? You build hardware, you want to go to the Bay Area. If you're a movie maker and you're a small company, where do you want to go? You want to go to LA, right? Because that's where movies are. If you're in the oil and gas industry, where do you want to go? You want to go to Houston, because that's where the oil and gas companies are. Well, if you want your technical infrastructure to be taken care of, where should you go? You should go where all of the company's technical infrastructure is being taken care of, so you can take advantage of the fact that everyone's together, and you can take advantage of those collisions that occur in that type of a situation. So the big, medium, small companies, we're well positioned to actually take care of any one of them.
Right. Well, interestingly enough, I'm also an advisor to DocBeat, and so it's been really nice to go to customers and say, hey, we're hosted at the Switch SuperNap. And really that's my next question for you. Tell us about the security of the Switch SuperNap as it relates to HIPAA and healthcare, and maybe some of your other customers that are even more stringent than healthcare is.
Well, healthcare is a pretty stringent environment. I think one of the interesting things that we've been able to do, we've built an environment that is allowing customers of any type of compliance or regulatory needs actually meet their needs. We have a military trained security force. So if you come here and you see what's going on, the perimeter wall is is of the highest level of security. You know, how you get into the facility is very important. Our team that actually guards it, those are our employees, and they all come from law enforcement or military backgrounds. And our chief security officer understands the role of physical security in cybersecurity. Right. That's actually one of the things that gets overlooked a lot. People talk about cybersecurity and they're protecting their firewalls and doing all that, but they neglect in many cases the physical security and how important that is. We do that better than anyone. And so, although when you have a HIPAA compliant application or a PCI or a Sarbanes-Oxley or a FISMA or a FedRAMP or whatever application you have to certify the whole stack, right? You have to certify your application, you got to certify the hardware, and you have to certify the physical facility. The good news about our environment is there's never been an industry or a compliance standard that our physical facility hasn't supported the compliance standards associated with that. So we have HIPAA and FDA certified applications running in our environment, and it's because of the resiliency of our data center and the security that we have that makes that possible.
Nice. So, you know, I love how you talked about it as an ecosystem of solutions as opposed to just a data center. So, you know, kind of describe some of the solutions that you guys can offer beyond just, you know, the standard data center. You can put your servers here and we'll give you some power and some, you know, cooling. You know, what other services do you provide as part of that ecosystem?
Here's the interesting thing, and this is where we differentiate ourselves, and I'll probably address a question came in. It said, what is your view on raw data center space versus platform as a service as it pertains to healthcare companies? So that was one of the questions that just came in. I'll probably answer that question. It relates
to the solution you offer too, right?
Yeah, I'll probably answer that as it relates to this question that you asked. How do we do this? You know, not too long ago when we looked at what it was going to take to service all these customers, you know, you look at a data center environment and we provide raw co-location space to customers and they can come in, they put their own gear in there and they can take advantage of that and they can run it and they can manage it. Now, when you start to move up the stack, companies are going, well, will you take care of will you give me infrastructure as a service, or can you give me platform as a service, or software as a service, right? Or managed service, or a dedicated hosting, or virtualized environment, or just storage, you know, whatever the solution set is. We looked at that a long time ago and we said, you know, the benefit of our environment is the fact that all of these solutions are present in our data center. So we, as a company, don't necessarily go out and provide those services. We rely on our partners within the facility. And what we've created is the Cloud Ubiquitous Business Exchange. It's over 50 different providers of managed services and cloud services and platform as a service and infrastructure as a service that can take care of our customers. And I say things, you know, one of the funny things I say from time to time is we've created an environment where the answer is yes. What's the question, right? What is it you want to do? And we have a way for that to be met. And in many cases, we play the role of the trusted advisor in helping a healthcare company navigate how they might go through this. And I'll give you a great example. One of the healthcare companies came to us and said, you know, we think cloud is for us, but what we know is that we have several hundred applications that we're managing. We got our PACS system, we got our back office system, we've got our accounting and financials, and our HR, and our legal, and our contract management, our compliance system. What do we move to the cloud? What do we not move to the cloud? How do we do this? And so what we were able to craft for them is we carved out in their own private space in the data center, and then we brought in service providers who delivered them solutions in a cloud-like way from an operating standpoint and from a physical standpoint so that they could consume services in this private environment on their own. So they met their compliance standards, they got to take advantage of the economics of cloud, and where it was appropriate, they got to use it accordingly. You know, in some cases it was software as a service, in some cases it was platform as a service, in some cases it was infrastructure as a service. You know, and as it relates to this question, you know, raw data center space versus platform as a service as it pertains to healthcare companies, the answer is really yes. You're going to have environments where you're building, let's say I've decided to build a new application. If I'm going to go build a new application, I'm going to look to a platform as a service cloud provider to give me the environment that I can then take advantage of, you know, the LAMP stack and height and scalability and maybe Mongo and Hadoop or whatever things I need to take advantage of. I'm going to go to a platform as a service provider to help me build that application. But at the same time, I've got this legacy application that I'm managing. I would never want to put that on a platform as a service environment. And the fact of the matter is, healthcare industry is full of legacy applications that we just are going to take a long time to get rid of.
They have to.
So when I look at that legacy application, I say, that's going to be a hosted thing. I'm going to ask someone to host it for me. So the most important thing is you're navigating, in healthcare and IT, is to make sure that you're not trying to find some silver bullet that's going to solve all your problems, because it doesn't exist. What the silver bullet that does exist, though, is being in an ecosystem of solutions, so that when you need platform as a service, it's there. When you need infrastructure as a service, it's there. When you need cloud from a FDA compliant environment or a HIPAA compliant service provider, it's there and it's available. So that whole suite of solutions come together in a way in our environment that make it possible for any healthcare company to take advantage of that.
Excellent. So, it's interesting you talk about all these cloud solutions, and I still remember this CIO conference where I saw these CIOs that said, we know the cloud's here and we know we have to do it, but it really, not so many words. They kind of said we're scared, right? They're kind of afraid of the cloud. Should they be afraid, and can you allay their fear?
In certain situations they should be afraid, and this kind of comes. There's a question that just came through. How quickly will healthcare adopt these solutions? Most acute systems have chosen the on-premise model with huge iron and CIO protection mentality versus relying on others. This goes right into that point, right? Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, healthcare companies have been relying on others for a very long time, right? Yeah. Cloud just kind of represents a very scary story for them. What they've done, in the past is they've said, I got this PACS system, I'm going to outsource that to this company who specializes in PACS. And so they outsource the running of the application, the infrastructure, and they get a hosted environment. They've been doing that for years. That's cloud, the operating model, right? Let me take something that I normally spend capital on and spend monthly expense on and have to have people for, and let me just turn it into a monthly OpEx. So they've been doing cloud, the operating model, in the healthcare industry for a long time, but it was in these very self-contained environments. And what they lost was taking the advantage of multi-tenancy, the fact that when you get a lot of people together, you start to get scale and you can take advantage of that scale. The environments that we're running are getting too critical. So let's talk about healthcare companies that are keeping their stuff on premise. It's a false notion that their environment is more secure than an environment like ours. It's a false premise, right? And just because they build a hospital, they actually think, well, if I build a hospital, I can build a data center because I can tie my data center to the hospital. They're two very different environments today. The complications of managing the environmentals associated with the data center are getting very different because of the technologies that are present today. And when you have a hospital whose IT infrastructure goes down because there was a problem with some power issue, there was a power issue in the building that maybe shut down a small portion of the hospital, but then also impacts the data center and the generators don't come on. In today's world, if the data center isn't available, surgeries can't be performed.
Right.
We are too dependent upon the technology now, and it's a good thing. It's enabling a lot of good stuff, but you can't have that happen. We were talking to one healthcare provider. They had a data center outage. It was tied to their building. That data center outage led to 10 hours of no surgeries being performed, and they were losing like $1,000 a minute because they couldn't perform all these surgeries that were queued up in their hospital. They couldn't be executed on. We had another healthcare provider who, in their building, they built their data center and they put it in the basement. Well, they had a water leak in the floor up above. That water leaked into the data center. They had to shut the data center down. That data center is unrecoverable for the next several months. Companies, and now they can't operate the hospital until they get that data center back up and running. Right. They really have to get out of that mentality that if it's there, they protect it. And as they look to find service providers, I mean, the fact of the matter is there are cloud service providers out there who specialize in doing HIPAA and FDA compliant type services. And the best way to get comfortable with it is to take that inventory, focus on the applications that you know will work well in that environment, and then start to move that direction so that you can get the economies of scale that come with taking advantage of those solutions. And a perfect example, right, one to get very comfortable with is a lot of the healthcare facilities, the hospitals, they have some element of what they do that's public facing. Right? Mm-hmm. Users have to be able to log into, it reaches out, it's a web-based and it's a web-enabled environment. Look, stop hosting that in your environment, go to a cloud, right? Put that out there. That's an easy thing to get started with, and then you get comfortable with these technologies. But not adopting these technologies is going to hinder healthcare companies' ability to grow as the connected consumer and the connected healthcare environment starts to become a reality. We're about to see more connected devices in hospitals and in healthcare facilities than we've ever seen in the past. Right? There's a wave of hardware coming that's going to require infrastructure to support it. And if as a hospital you haven't adopted some of these new technologies that allow you to take advantage of that, you're going to be 2 generations behind, and it's going to be very difficult to catch up.
So I want to dig in. I know we have another question we'll get to in a minute, but I want to dig into this idea that, you know, the false assumption you talk about, that hospitals think that their environment is more secure and more safe and more appropriate than, say, an outsourced data center. And maybe we can use it with the idea of EHR downtime. So what are some of the things that you've done that most hospitals have likely not done to prevent EHR downtime? As you say, we've seen a lot of instances in healthcare where EHR downtime happens and it causes a huge impact. So what's unique about your environment that would be hard for a hospital to replicate, or that likely they haven't replicated at all, or could be?
So there's a myriad of things there that I could go into, and it's one of those ones where if you're very interested in that question, come out for a tour of the facility and we can show you the whole thing, right? So there's my pitch for the tour. But at the highest level, probably a good way to talk about that is, you know, there's a data center group called the Uptime Institute, and they certify facilities as being a certain level of tier, and Tier 4 Gold is the highest level that you can achieve, right? And that's a statement of how you operate the data center. It's uptime, how it's constructed, the design of the facility, all of those things that go into play there. What cooling being available, power being available, backup generators, fuel, testing, operationally, everything that has to be done to keep that environment up and running. We are the only Tier 4 certified, designed, and built co-location facility in North America. And we're about to be the only Tier 4 Gold operated co-location facility in the world. So just that right there tells you that our standards that we operate are so high that it's going to prevent the data center from impacting EHR downtime. Now, just because the data center is up and running doesn't mean the application can't go down. But that's where you take advantage of an environment like ours to build active-active type solutions. The challenge that hospitals and healthcare providers have is that they're standing up these environments. They build them in their facility, and then they maybe do some backup and they do DR somewhere else. But what happens when this goes down and they lose connectivity to the backup and DR? And that's kind of the situations that are happening. In an environment like ours, they can actually run active-active, and they can spend the money on diverse paths of connectivity into the facility. And even in a worst-case scenario, if for some reason the facility drops off the map, right? If the facility just, for whatever reason, can't function, they have the ability to set up somewhere else and connect to their environment and get access to their tools that they need. It's all about that ability of being location independent. And the only way you can be location independent is if you put it in an environment where the experts who build this stuff every day, which is our team, are running and managing that facility.
Yeah. I think the other thing related to that is that most hospital environments are so strapped with everything that they're dealing with, meaningful use stage 2, ICD-10. I mean, they can't even upgrade Windows XP to the latest version of operating system. You know, like thinking about data center uptime, you know, almost becomes a later thing, whereas you're thinking about it every day, every hour of every week, right?
And not only that, in our environment, they get to take advantage of the fact that there's an ecosystem of service providers that when they find themselves wanting to do something new, they can just go across the aisle and say, hey, have you done this before? Can you help us accomplish that? And that's really meaningful.
And that really brings us to the question we had posed by Jonathan here. He said, what are your thoughts on an open computing environment and app-specific hardware versus buying traditional servers and storage? You know,
so I would probably more clear. I would separate open compute and app-specific hardware from two separate things, right? Open compute is the idea that you kind of go and it's a little bit like what Facebook and Google and these other guys are doing, where they're buying and they're actually creating their own hardware, right? Okay. In my opinion, no company in the world but Google or Facebook and maybe a few others should be doing that. Because when they're doing that, they have a staff of people who deal with driver compatibility and software compatibility and can write drivers and can deal with the fact that, hey, we bought this open compute framework, but this doesn't work. And so then we're going to take our team of developers and do that. The fact of the matter is only the largest of companies have the staff to do that. Now let's talk about app-specific hardware. That's yet another thing that I would say. App-specific hardware we see deployed in a lot of cases. So for instance, let's talk about, as an example, SAP HANA, right? That's one that's in the news a lot. So SAP HANA comes out and they basically say it's a cloud-based environment. But what hardware providers are doing is they're putting together specific configurations for SAP HANA to run very effectively. I would call that an app-specific hardware application, right?
Okay.
This is where SAP HANA certified this stack of stuff to run in that environment. There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's a very, very, very effective way to run your environment. There are very few places where that occurs, but in the healthcare industry, you have the software guys saying, we've certified this group of hardware to work on our environment, and if you buy this stack, we'll support it from top to bottom. There's very beneficial to that when you talk about app-specific environments, and that's, when we look at the IT organization of the future, then it becomes something where you've got a mix of app-specific hardware as well as traditional servers and storage. I still think that for almost 99% of the companies out there, buying traditional servers and storage is the way to go, because you just can't support the hardware on your own. What you want more than anything else is to just plug the stuff in and have it work. That does not do the same for open compute, but it is supposed to do that for app-specific hardware, and when you buy traditional servers and storage, you get the support infrastructure of everyone out there. And the interesting thing is costs are going down significantly as well. And then as you grow, you get to take advantage of cloud where it makes sense. So it's kind of that mixed environment. I'm just not a big fan of the open compute environments for companies who don't have staff to deal with all the issues that come with that. There are companies that do, and it makes sense for them, but 99% of the companies out there, it does not.
Interesting. So can you tell us, kind of in wrap up, since we're ending, as you look at it and you look at the different companies coming into your environment, and they're bringing a wide variety of technologies, how is healthcare doing in adopting the latest technologies, or do we have a long ways to come? And what are some opportunities they could exploit that they aren't exploiting now?
They have a long ways to come. They're in this wave of innovation that's been occurring in the technology infrastructure space. They're the last ones to arrive. But that's actually represents an opportunity for them, because what's happened is enterprises have been taking advantage of virtualization and cloud over the past 3 to 4 years as they've been going through their refreshes. Well, healthcare was kind of sitting on their heels. Well, the next wave of technology, that's kind of the next iteration of what's coming out today, hardware, software, the way it talks, integration, those types of things, it's now a little more mature, and it's going through another innovation. So one of the opportunities for healthcare companies is to actually leapfrog what's occurred in the past and jump to the next thing. Now that's going to take the most innovative teams of healthcare providers out there, and not everybody will be ready for that. So as they look to adopt whatever spectrum they're adopting on, whether it's the latest and greatest of 2 years ago, or the latest and greatest that's coming out in the near future, the one thing we know is they're going to have to revisit the way their teams are structured. And we've seen companies and enterprise organizations make this transition, where you go away from this is my app guy, and this is my server guy, and this is my networking guy, and this is my storage guy. What you now have, and the way teams are going to be restructured in the future, is they're going to need to be familiar with how all of that works together. Because reference architectures like vBlock and FlexPod, and Dell's got a platform, and HP's platform, those reference architectures, they kind of take into account the whole thing. They're more app specific. And so you have to have a good knowledge of everything from the application layer all the way down to the storage layer. And as companies have successfully restructured their teams and found the people in those areas that can optimize those environments and understand the whole stack, they're really able to take advantage of these technologies and deliver the latest and greatest that's out there. The most important thing for healthcare companies, I think, to realize is this idea of very little technology from a connected standpoint in the hospital is going away. The wave of stuff coming is going to mean massive amounts of connectivity, security, bandwidth, capacity, scalability, reliability. All these things are going to be a big part of that. And they need to start to look to outside of their own four walls in order to effectively manage and maintain those solutions. And the companies that have, they're the ones who are going to innovate and be the leaders going down the road. And we're seeing that, 3 years ago, we saw some forward-thinking healthcare companies take advantage of that in our environment, and now it's paying off for them in spades. their ability to grow and scale and take advantage of these new technologies easily and quickly is surpassing their competition. And it's going to be meaningful for them as they try to marry the cure and the care system together. The idea that they can share that data and work in a collaborative environment is game-changing for them.
Excellent. Well, thanks. We're up against the clock, so I appreciate you spending time. Hopefully we can have you back again. We'll talk more trends in data centers and cloud computing with you at another time. And hopefully many of the listeners will be able to come out to the conference and see the tour firsthand. I mean, I can say, as a tech geek myself, a former data center nerd that worked in data centers, going on the tour was an experience that will give you a new impression of Vegas. So thanks so much.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, John.